Your feet are like hands grabbing the ground, and that energy comes up through your kamae, into your blocker, whatever, that feeling, driving from the floor. And if you're kokutsudachi zenbu to ko, but this is all this connection to the floor that's allowing that dynamism to make you go. A forward stance isn't just this position, but it's this way to kind of shore up some boundaries that then I can kind of press my energy through. I can like establish all this stuff so that if this was fluid substance here in my imagination, how would I kind of shore it up to make it go that way? Like I wouldn't want part of it going that way. I wouldn't want part of it going up that way. I want to kind of make all this, via the shape, all these boundaries get established sort of as they shore up at the apex of your delivery. So that feeling like that. I would say that same thing should occur in your hand mudras. So when you're making a knife hand, instead of your hand just being this sort of inert shape, like a la a stance without any inflection inside, I would say have your hand in the configuration, the general configuration of Shotoke or Shuto, but at the apex of your technique, press in that direction. So my hand, super slow motion, is here, it's in the shape, but there's no real energy being pushed through it. But when I make the block, I kind of press. Yeah. And then if you think of it that way, if you think of the channeling energy as the objective, then the form will follow the function. Like if I want to push that way on my hand, well, you kind of have to shore up the other side of your hand. And so your thumb will naturally go into that place because you're trying to do something now.
Right.
Do you understand? So the function, my intention, will establish the form. And I would say that goes for everything. If you're making seiken and you're squeezing through the first two knuckles, yeah, then your hand grips in a way where you're really getting this place kind of established. So when I was young and I saw these images in the books of, they would put the different hand mudras and they'd have a little arrow or they'd have a little circle, you know what I'm talking about? These are the striking surfaces. I thought, well, yeah, those are the striking surfaces, but maybe they're trying to communicate something a little more. Like maybe they're trying to say, yeah, press in that direction, or press in that direction, or press in that direction. You follow? So I would say it's kind of akin to, this is your whip, like a bull whip. Like here's the handle throwing something. And then this is like a little string you attach at the end of your whip that makes it crack. You follow that idea? Like you want that little, at the end of any technique, you want that little crack at the end. And that part of that crack is that little inflection. My Atoshi Uke, this inflection here is the rope at the end of my bullwhip. So let me borrow. Go easy. But basically this feeling right like that. So just like that feeling is this feeling. This feeling, I do it easy, but this comes down with relaxed heaviness and makes a cut. That feeling like that. That feeling. Yeah. And you do that with not just your arm, but this whole side of your body dropping. That feeling. You see it?
Yep.
So there are specific moves. Again, I would say like jite, like when you step in jite, you're going to hold this back and then you unwrap. High-end sandan, but that ability to focus an edge of your body, like that half.
Yes.
And then would you say that to work on what the feeling is and then work on the feeling?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's probably a good point. Yeah. So, lovely lady just said, when you're first feeling it. Yeah, I would say the very first thing is make your stance, kamae, whatever. Get that feeling of maybe cutting a wedge, and just get that feeling of at the end, that like heavy, settled feeling. That feeling. That's like da-donk. Then put that in movement. So you want, again, get away from, and then having that arrive late. You want that heavy, dropping feeling. As soon as you step, that feeling is boom, boom, connect. A lot about the kick. They don't think a lot about the supporting leg or just the general composure of their upper body. So you'll see people kind of kick and their hands will do weird things. So you really want this coherence in your upper body. So when I'm kicking, my feeling, it's really, my whole body is engaging. My whole body is sort of, so I'm not kind of dropping my attention down to my lower body. But when I'm kicking, I'm still very much in my space. My hands are up as I kick, whatever. So, but don't think of your supporting leg as a big, like my Yeti. That supporting leg is the same thing that's doing that in your punch. I would encourage you to just really connect with what you're doing. That's the whole secret for me. Like when I asked the gentleman testing, what was it all about, and I didn't want to give him my explanation, but it really, for me, is like really living in the connected moment, like really feeling the now, like ichigo ichi, that sense. So when I do my warm-up, and I want to approach it kind of a little bit more deliberate than most, and I close my eyes, I try to feel exactly what's occurring in my body as I'm doing that. So for me, it's like facilitating mind-body connection, okay? The other place, and the other thing, just saying, is when I go off and I teach in wherever, I always, after we make the shomunire and we turn and bow and then we stand, I always pay really close attention to how people rise up from seiza, because it's kind of an indication of how connected they are to their body. Just saying. It's my little litmus test. Okay. So for me, like, your etiquette is also exactly the same thing. Like, they said Funakashi could tell the skill of somebody by their ritsure, their standing bow. Then I read Thich Nhat Hanh's book, there's a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. He said he could tell the level of a person by how they turned a doorknob and entered a room. I said, it's basically the same thing. It's like how mindful and how deliberate are they in the things that they do. You follow? So for me, like the etiquette, like when we sit and stand or bow at the beginning of the kata or to one another, all those things are kind of imbued with a feeling. There's a sentiment attached to them that really is the essence of what you're doing. Like just going through this motion or the ritual of the motion, really, it has no, but actually to have a thought in your mind when you, like for example, when you bow to your training partner, well, there's a different sentiment in your heart than when you bow to your teacher, or a teacher bows to the student, or you bow to the dojo, or you bow at the beginning of the kata. Each one, for me, is really unique. What I'm thinking, like where I'm trying to position my mentality, is quite specific to each one of those. Do you follow? And if you just kind of go through the motion of it, I think you're robbing yourself of an opportunity to kind of build a muscle of your connection to what's really going on. So I think the ritual is kind of like a reminder of what's really significant in your practice. When I bow to my students, I'm like, hey, it took a lot to walk through that door, essentially. For most people don't walk through the door and put on a gi and start training. And so I try to honor that when I'm bowing to my students or to anyone. That's what I'm thinking. And when I would bow to my teacher, if I'm bowing to Satomi Sensei, I'm saying, hey, I'm kind of putting my life in your hands. I'm trusting that your leadership is going to be done conscientiously. So that's a totally different sentiment. I remember I used to lock up my dojo. Everyone would be gone. I'd lock up my dojo, clean everything. I'd be the last person. I'd turn. I'd face the dojo. And this is my space. This is where, I've chosen to develop myself. And that's a very unique relationship I have with that space. Would be different than your relationship with that space. Do you follow? So I think if you want to have a richer experience, then enrich your experience.